Good afternoon to all my YouTube supporters. Thanks for stopping by the Hellcat Dogman channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, all information obtained through this channel in reference to pit bull dogs is all historical and entertainment purposes only. Reading is fundamental. Today we're going to do a piece on Grand Champion 35, the dog with no pedigree. But before we go to 35, let's talk about 35's owner briefly. Rushin Bill Stewart. So I had became acquainted with Rushin Bill through a magazine by another fellow by the name of Casey Cordier. Casey used to breed pit bulls and American bulldogs. He was the owner of Watchdog Kennels. Casey also had, he bred a lot of that blue stuff, but some of it went back to, if I'm not mistaken, Mason's Hog. I know he had Champion Thor, so I don't know the background on Champion Thor. If anybody know the background on Champion Thor, you can, put it in the comments. Give us a little history on Champion Thor. But anyway, Bill and Casey, if I'm not mistaken, this was in the mid to late 90s. They were partners. Well, Rushin Bill joined Casey on his magazine as a contributing writer. And Casey had other writers. Bob Stevens used to write. I think Richard Stratton used to write for Casey's magazine. But they would cover strictly the pit bull aspect of the magazine, where Casey would cover the American bulldog aspect. So after a while, Rushin Bill went on his own solo mission, and he started up the Pit Bull Reporter, and it was exclusively, geared towards the pit bull. So I don't know what, if they had any issues, but, Bill separated, and it was through the pit. Once he separated, I subscribed to his magazine also. And at one time, I was even, I had plenty conversations with him on the phone. Me and Bill used to talk. I never met him personally, but, through, our correspondence was basically through phone calls and, mail. So that's how I knew, I used to talk to Bill a lot. I remember one time asking him about Grand Champion 35. And I asked him, I said, did it ever cross your mind, or did you think about hanging some papers on him? And he said, no, he never thought about that. So that's one thing I respected about him, because he could have easily, papered up a dog and made it said 35 was off of this dog, but he kept it 100. So you can't do nothing respect that, especially the way today's game is going, with all the lying and the cheating. So I respect Bill for that. And so I used to get his magazine, and I used to distribute it out in my area of New York. Every time an issue would come out, I would order 10, and he would send me another 10. So I would distribute them, to dog people. And I had 2 pet shops that used to sell his magazines back then also. So I had me a little side gig doing, helping him keep the magazine afloat, as he used to say. Yeah, rest in peace to Rushin Bill. But he owned that. He bred that monster of a dog, Grand Champion Mongoose. From what I heard, there was a story about Mongoose. Mongoose, one person who's seen him go, and I know a few dogmen that's actually seen Mongoose go. But one person said once Mongoose got in, once he finally delivered his mouth, the other dog looked up, and the look on the other dog's eyes would be like, man, why couldn't I have been a poodle? But yeah, Mongoose was definitely something. You could definitely read about him. So Bill also owned Champion Bronca, Champion Triple Ought Rock, Champion Mad Max. And then, like I said, he bred Champion Mongoose. He bred Champion Tippy. He bred Champion Juju. And, a lot more of, good dogs came through that yard. So, like I said, man, I give a big shout out and tip my hat. Rest in peace to Rushin Bill. So, this story I got on 35, I'm pretty sure I don't have the whole of all his matches, but this particular story is actually on his 5th match, right when he became a grand champion. But I'm pretty sure I remember reading it's one of my I got some magazine in there when he went into Greasy Corner Kid. So I'm not sure if that's his 4th match, but I'll find that one and upload that one to YouTube also. So this is the 5th match of Grand Champion 35. The Buckskins Dog's 5th match, the one that will make him Grand Champion, is the hardest one for me to recount. The reason being that I had to admit that due to my own ignorance, he was nearly defeated. I had recently started hearing about the benefits of human athletes eating copious amounts of carbohydrates before and even during their competitive events, and theorized that they should work well on dogs also. The result is proof of the truth of that old saw, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. But let's start at the beginning. We were again matched into top-notch fast lane competition. There could be no doubt the owner was a man named Les W., who was partners with Broadway Jack at the time, and I had heard rumors about their dogs breeding. He was very well bred, and even that he had killed a 4-time winner in 25 minutes in the tryout role. Our keep started out on a bad note as my partner burned up 35's feet on a flirt pole, and by the first week, causing him to be very averse towards his work. Initially, Roger thought he was just being lazy for some reason, but a quick examination of his feet revealed that they were quite raw up in between his pads from running in too deep sand. We considered paying a forfeit, and I called Jack to tell him, but ironically, he talked me into taping up the dog's feet with duct tape and trying to work him that way. We determined that even with the tape, he couldn't really work the flirt pole, but had another idea. Why not work him on a spring pole, which was much easier on the feet as it included very little running. We tried it, it worked. We had the old warrior back on track in no time. If you ever put a dog through a keep on a spring pole, I have news for you. It ain't easy. To get the proper shape on the dog, we peaked his workout at about an hour and 45 minutes per day. Tried that day in and day out with a strong, talented, and relentless 42-pound bulldog hanging onto the hide for 5 weeks. And you'll have an idea what I mean. We decided to take turns working him, and my back is sure glad it had help for that one. It turned out that Jack was having some legal difficulties at that time and couldn't attend. So Les bought their dog. We were matched at 41.5 pounds, and our dog came in at 41, as I recall. I'll never forget the first time we saw our opponent. Les was out walking him when we arrived, and suddenly we appeared around the corner of a house with this monstrously muscled up hulk of a dog. Raj and I agreed he couldn't possibly make the correct weight, and we were right. Les told us his charge weighed a healthy 43 pounds. We were ready to take the forfeit and go home, and it took a bit of convincing from several people to get us to agree to go ahead with the match. Finally, we conceded to collect the forfeit and get some odds from Les and do it. At that point in his career, we were already matching 35 2 pounds higher than his ideal weight just to get him hooked, as nobody with a 39 to 40 pound dog wanted anything to do with him. And now he was in with a dog that had another 2 pounds advantage over him to boot. I had already decided that if this brute was too much for 35, I wasn't going to leave him down to be killed or ruined. Then unfortunately come the carbos. We had been giving cooked noodles to the dog before his matches, but this time unfortunately I gave him a couple of slices of Wonder Bread. Apparently bread gets into the system pretty fast, and that coupled with the extreme humid air of southern Mississippi was to have a very negative effect on our dog. We held the match in the den of a man's house. He had removed all the furniture early and put down a tarp and then a carpet over that. With all the fanciers in there, plus 2 dogs breathing heavily, it became pretty stuffy and oppressive environment. The owner supplied a fan, but it wasn't enough. Not for a dog with his gut full of white bread anyway. At the start, 35 dominated their dog, Hook, so named because the way his tail hooked over his back. He had more talent and seemed to be biting better, which fortunately turned out to be the case. As the match progressed, however, 35 got hotter and hotter. I called a turn on him just to get him to a corner so I could put some water on him, try to get him cooled off. But it just wasn't working. By the 25-minute mark, the bread had really begun to kick in, and he was practically limp in his corner. His eyes were glossy, and of course he was breathing like a freight train laboring up the mountain pass. By this time, Hook was getting him down and working him over at will, as the badly overheated 35 couldn't keep his feet with that bull of a dog. I knew that if he couldn't cool out very soon, the match was a lost cause for us. At the 38-minute mark, we handled, and I decided that if Hook appeared to be coming hard on his scratch, as he had been up to that point, I was going to pick up my dog and concede the match. It was then that the strangest thing I ever seen in a dog match occurred. We faced our dog, and the referee commanded. We faced our dogs at the referee's command, and Les released Hook, and the dog started over, and I had already had 35's front feet off the floor and had started to say, "That's it." When suddenly Les clapped his hands in apparent jubilation, and startled Hook stopped in mid-scratch and turned around and looked at Les as to say, "What did you do that for?" and took the count. Of course, it had eased my dog back down to the mat, and as I hadn't finished announcing my intention, the referee awarded us the fight. That was close. After the match, our dog was being tended to by my partners. I asked Les what he was going to do with Hook. He told me they were going to throw him to a big gator near his friend's house. Although I really didn't believe that, I asked him if he would take $100 for him, but he declined and stuck to his gator story. I said, okay, $500, last offer, and the dog with the hook tail was reprieved from becoming gator bait into my custody. When I got Hook home, I noticed he was terrified of me and pretty much terrified of everything else too. A very shy dog. I called up Broadway Jack, who was not a happy camper about the results of the match, and he told me he could have predicted Hook's reaction to the hand clap, as he would also do that on the cat meal during his workouts if he heard a loud noise. He also confirmed the story about their dog having killed a 4-time winner in a row. He said they thought he was a good dog, but had changed their minds, of course, after the loss. I decided to keep an open mind about this strange incident and try him later. I was never sorry. I changed the dog's name to Rock because I didn't like Hook and because that was what he looked like the first time I had seen him. He was built like a rock house. I rolled him, liked him, matched him twice more, winning one, losing one game to a champion. I also bred him and he is the grandsire of champion Tippy and 2 other 2-time winners, Big Mickey, now on my yard for stud. As for 35, he was fine after cooling out for a while. As I suspected, Hook wasn't biting very hard, apparently intimidated by the closeness of the indoor pit and spectators. He was a much better dog after I acclimated him to noise pollution during his next keep and came completely out of his shy nature. Now I was unsure of my carbohydrate theory, but still had faith in the old buckskin warrior. He was born to fight, and he will fight again 3 more times. And that's match number 5 on Grand Champion 35. And as a side note, Bill took his life back in 2010, I think March of 2010 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he committed suicide. Police raided his property and they found a bunch of marijuana they said he was growing, and he had guns strategically placed all through his house. And he had guns in the bathroom and the kitchen, everywhere. They found over 40 guns all through the place. So I don't know what Bill was preparing for, but I guess he felt it's better to be prepared than not be prepared. So once again, rest in peace, Rushin Bill.